I texted the family group, "My wedding is this Friday, hope you'll come." My sister answered, "We're busy, don't count on us." My dad said, "Quit being overdramatic." I simply replied, "All right." That night, what they discovered on social media made them deeply regret not showing up. Have you ever felt utterly discarded by the very people who were supposed to cherish you most? Like your own family made a conscious choice to sideline you, then mocked you for it? Well, last week, my life came full circle, and the people who wrote me off were forced to witness everything they'd missed. And, trust me, it was a moment I'd been quietly waiting for. My name is Nolan, I'm 29, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet one in my family. Not shy, just reserved. I never demanded attention or flooded the family group chat with every single detail of my life. My parents always used to say I kept too much to myself. But honestly, it was just easier than competing with my sister Claire. That woman could turn breathing into a Broadway show. If I got a new job, she'd magically announce a bigger promotion with a fatter salary. If I bought a car, she'd post photos of her new SUV within days. That dynamic had been the background noise of my entire life. But when I got engaged to Emily, I thought, this is it. This is my wedding, my moment. Surely, everyone in the family could rally around this. I sent out proper invitations months in advance. I even planned around major holidays so no one could claim other commitments. My parents RSVP'd with a simple, "We'll be there." Even Claire sent a quick, "Can't wait." For a while, I actually let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. The week of the wedding, just to be safe, I sent a friendly reminder in the family group chat. You know, just in case. "My wedding's this Friday." I typed, adding a smiley face, which, for me, is practically an emotional outburst. "Would love to see you there." It didn't take long for the first reply. It was from Claire. "We're busy. Don't expect us." No apology. No explanation. Just that. My stomach dropped like a stone. Before I could even process it, my dad chimed in. "Stop being so dramatic." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Dramatic? I hadn't even said anything yet. I could feel Emily looking over my shoulder, reading the messages, her hand resting lightly on my arm. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and all I typed back was, "Okay." Nothing else. No questions, no begging, no guilt tripping. Just, "Okay." Then I put my phone down. That silence, from me, must have been the loudest thing they'd ever heard. I didn't call to follow up. I didn't ask why they weren't coming. I didn't tell them about the hotel rooms I'd already reserved for them, or how much Emily had looked forward to our families finally meeting. I didn't tell them about the money I'd spent, the hours planning, or the way I'd pictured my dad walking into the ceremony with that proud look I'd only ever imagined. Instead, I just let them believe whatever they wanted about me being dramatic. But that evening, as Emily and I sat on the couch, my phone buzzed again. Not with apologies. Oh no, those didn't come. Instead, Claire posted in the family group chat about how she and her husband were finally having a weekend to themselves. There was a photo of them clinking glasses at some fancy rooftop bar. My parents reacted with little thumbs-up emojis, like they were all in on some private joke. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because even then I knew something they didn't. Something they were going to find out very, very soon. And when they did, it wouldn't be me sending any messages. It would be the world showing them exactly what they'd missed. The days leading up to the wedding felt strangely calm on my end, but only because I decided not to chase anyone. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone in my family would realize how out of line their response had been and reach out. They didn't. Instead, the group chat became a highlight reel of Claire's life. She sent photos of an amazing dinner at some steakhouse, then a video of their new puppy playing in the park. My mom commented, "He's the cutest thing ever." And my dad added, "You two deserve this break. You've been working so hard." Working so hard? I read those words over and over, feeling that familiar burn in my chest. Claire had been unemployed for months last year, bouncing between projects that went nowhere. But somehow, in my parents' eyes, she was this overworked, saintly figure who needed to be protected from any inconvenience, including showing up for her only brother's wedding. Meanwhile, I'd been working full-time, saving for years, and building a life from scratch without ever asking them for a dime. Yet, I was the one dismissed as dramatic for inviting them. Thursday afternoon, less than 24 hours before the ceremony, my mom finally texted me directly. For a split second, I thought maybe she was going to say they'd changed their minds. But when I opened it, it read, "We know you're upset, but you can't expect everyone to drop their plans for you. Claire already had this weekend booked." Be happy for her. I stared at the words, feeling my jaw tighten. It wasn't just that they weren't coming. It was the way they were trying to make me feel guilty for even wanting them there. I didn't answer. I didn't tell her that Emily's parents had rearranged their entire schedules, flying in 2 days early to help with last-minute preparations. I didn't mention that my best friend from college was driving 8 hours through the night just to make it on time. I didn't point out that all my coworkers had RSVP'd months ago without hesitation. No, I just let her think she'd made her point. That evening, while Emily was at her final dress fitting, I got another notification from the group chat. Claire had posted a selfie of her and her husband at a spa, cucumber slices over their eyes and champagne in hand. The caption read, "Finally, a weekend with no stress." My dad commented, "Enjoy every second. You deserve it." My mom added, "This is what life's about." That one cut deeper than I expected. My wedding, the day Emily and I had been planning for over a year, wasn't what life's about in their eyes. No. Apparently, that title belonged to a spa weekend for my sister. And then, just when I thought they couldn't be more obvious about their favoritism, my mom posted a throwback photo of Claire's wedding from 3 years ago in the chat, writing, "Still the best day ever. Love this memory." Everyone in the family reacted with hearts and smiley faces. No mention of the wedding that was literally happening the next day. No, "We'll miss you," or "Good luck to me." Just a shrine to Claire's best day ever. I sat there, the screen glowing in my hands, realizing something I hadn't wanted to admit before. This wasn't just about them not coming to my wedding. This was about years of them making it crystal clear who the favorite was and who would always be the afterthought. What they didn't know was that I had stopped playing that game a long time ago. And tomorrow, without them even realizing it yet, the scoreboard was about to change forever. Friday morning, the day of the wedding, started off bright and warm. The kind of weather you hope for but never dare to count on. Emily was already getting her hair done with her bridesmaids, and I was in the hotel suite with my groomsmen, trying to keep the nerves at bay. For a few hours, I actually managed to push my family out of my mind. That is, until my phone buzzed again. It wasn't a congratulations or a last-minute change of heart. It was a new post in the family group chat. Claire had uploaded a video, shaky and loud, clearly taken from her phone, of a crowded brunch table. Everyone was there. My parents, my aunt and uncle, even a couple of cousins who hadn't said a word about the wedding. Plates piled high with pancakes, mimosas clinking. My mom's voice could be heard over the chatter saying, "This is so much better than being stuck in some boring ceremony all day." I felt my stomach twist. I replayed that clip 3 times, making sure I'd heard her right. There was no mistaking it. She'd said it with a laugh, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My dad chimed in from across the table in the background. We picked the right place to be, that's for sure. I just stood there, phone in hand, the noise of my friends around me fading into a dull hum. This wasn't just them not showing up. This wasn't just favoritism. This was them actively mocking my wedding on the very morning it was happening. One of my groomsmen, Adam, noticed the look on my face and asked, "Everything all right?" I must have looked pale, because even without an answer, he said, "Don't look at your phone. Just focus on today." But I couldn't. That video had lodged itself in my head like a splinter. I thought back to Claire's wedding, when I'd stood beside her in every photo she'd asked for. When I'd helped my dad set up the reception hall in the pouring rain. When I'd spent hours making sure the playlist she wanted worked perfectly. I'd shown up. I'd done the work. And here they were, all of them, skipping out on mine to have mimosas and pancakes while talking about how relieved they were not to be there. Then, as if to twist the knife, my mom sent a follow-up message to the group chat. "Hope today goes well for you, Nolan. Don't be mad." This weekend was already planned ages ago. Attached to it was a selfie of her and Claire holding their drinks, grinning ear to ear. That was the moment something in me clicked over. It wasn't just disappointment anymore. It was a clean, sharp break. Whatever thread of trust had still been holding between us snapped right there in that hotel room. I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I would never look at them the same way again. And as the morning went on, a very different kind of calm started to settle over me. The kind that comes when you know you have the power to turn the tables and the other side has no idea what's coming. The ceremony was beautiful. Objectively, anyone there would have said so. The venue overlooked a lake that glittered in the afternoon sun. The flowers Emily had picked were in full bloom, and the music floated through the air softly enough to make the moment feel suspended in time. But for me, there was a shadow over it all. Every empty seat where a parent or sibling should have been felt like a missing piece of the picture. Emily walked down the aisle looking breathtaking, and I smiled. really smiled, because she was the reason this day mattered. But even as I slid the ring onto her finger, a part of me was aware of the absence, the deliberate choice my family had made to not just skip my wedding, but celebrate skipping it. At the reception, people noticed. My friends exchanged glances when they realized my side of the family's table was half empty. Emily's parents, who'd gone above and beyond for us, kept trying to fill the space with warmth, introducing themselves to every guest and making sure the energy stayed high. I appreciated it more than I could say, but I couldn't shake the hollow feeling gnawing at me. When it came time for speeches, Adam, my best man, gave one that had everyone laughing and tearing up. Then Emily's father took the mic and said something about how lucky he was to gain a son. It was heartfelt and moving, but it also felt like a subtle reminder of what I'd lost, or maybe never truly had, with my own parents. Later, during a quiet moment between dances, I slipped outside to get some air. The music was muffled through the walls, and the night air was cool against my face. I pulled out my phone, half expecting, against all logic, to see a message from my mom or dad saying they'd changed their minds, or even just congrats. Instead, I saw another group chat update from Claire. A picture of their dessert spread at the restaurant with my dad holding up a slice of cake and grinning like he'd just won something. The caption read, "Best weekend ever." That one stung in a different way. Not just because they weren't there, but because they were making it so visible, almost daring me to react. I didn't reply. I didn't post anything back. I just stood there in the dark, realizing how final this felt. By the time I went back inside, I'd made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to confront them in anger. I wasn't going to try to force an apology. I wasn't even going to give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd hurt me this deeply. Instead, I was going to do what they never expected, walk away completely. It wasn't a loud vow or a dramatic announcement. It was something I carried silently as Emily, and I left the reception that night. As we drove away toward our honeymoon, hand in hand, I knew I was closing a chapter. But I also knew someday there'd be an opening in the next one. And when that day came, they wouldn't see it coming. Our honeymoon was the first time in months I truly felt free of the weight of my family's shadow. Emily and I spent 2 weeks traveling along the coast, visiting small towns, eating at family-run restaurants, and waking up without alarms. Every morning, I'd watch her smile over breakfast and think, this is my family now. This is who matters. When we got back home, life shifted into an entirely new rhythm. Emily's career as an interior designer started taking off. She landed a high-profile client in the city who introduced her to a network of people who valued her creativity. Meanwhile, the software company I'd co-founded 3 years earlier signed a massive contract that quadrupled our revenue almost overnight. For the first time, I wasn't just comfortable. I had real freedom. With that freedom came opportunities. We bought a beautiful home overlooking the water, the kind of place I dreamed about in college when I was eating instant noodles for dinner. We hosted friends on the weekends, traveled when we wanted, and slowly built a circle of people who celebrated our wins instead of resenting them. There were moments I thought about reaching out to my family just to share the milestones, when Emily's work was featured in a national magazine, when my company was nominated for an innovation award, when we signed the papers for our second property. But every time I imagined the conversation, I remembered the video of that brunch table, the sound of my mom saying, "This is so much better than being stuck in some boring ceremony all day," and the urge would disappear. Instead, I poured my energy into building something bigger. I expanded the company, hired a brilliant team, and began hosting networking events at our home. It was surreal watching some of the most influential people in my industry gather in my living room. The same kid who'd been brushed off as dramatic in a group chat now had CEOs asking me for introductions. Emily thrived, too. She started her own boutique design firm, and her projects began appearing in glossy magazine spreads. We became, in a quiet way, a power couple. Not the kind who flaunted it online. We didn't need to. The people who mattered saw it. And the ones who didn't, well, they'd find out eventually. It was around this time that I got invited to host a charity gala, a black tie event televised locally with some national coverage. It was a chance to give back and to put my name and Emily's in a very public spotlight. As we started planning the event, I had no idea it would become the exact moment my family's years of favoritism and dismissal would come full circle. But life has a funny way of setting the stage for moments you can't script. Moments where the people who wrote you off are forced to see exactly what they lost. Planning the gala felt like stepping into an entirely different world. One where I wasn't just an attendee in the background, but the name on the invitation. The charity we partnered with had deep connections in both the business and arts communities. So, the guest list quickly became a who's who of executives, politicians, and media figures. Emily took on the event design herself, transforming the venue into something straight out of a luxury magazine spread. Every detail, from the lighting to the floral arrangements, had her signature touch. A few weeks before the event, I met with the PR team who would handle the media coverage. They explained that not only would the gala be covered in local newspapers, but a segment would air on a popular lifestyle show, interviews, red carpet shots, the works. They encouraged me to be as visible as possible, do the interviews, greet high-profile guests personally, make it clear I was the driving force behind it all. That's when a small, almost mischievous thought crept in. My family had no idea what my life looked like now. As far as they were concerned, I was probably still living quietly somewhere, doing okay, but nothing worth bragging about. The truth was that I'd built something far beyond their imagination. And in just a few weeks, they were going to see it without me saying a single word. The turning point came one afternoon when Emily was reviewing the final seating chart for the gala. She casually mentioned, "Oh, and the mayor's office confirmed they're sending 2 representatives. The press will definitely eat that up." It hit me then. This wasn't just another charity event. This was a stage. A public, undeniable statement of where I stood now, surrounded by people they would never dream of rubbing shoulders with. 2 days later, I got a call from the event's media coordinator asking if they could film a behind-the-scenes segment at our home, interviews with Emily and me about why we were hosting the gala, plus some shots of us preparing. I agreed instantly, not because I needed the exposure for myself, but because I knew my family followed the local lifestyle magazine on social media. They'd see it. They'd watch it. And they'd realize they weren't invited. The week before the gala, I was reviewing the final guest list when I noticed a familiar name in the RSVP for one of the corporate sponsors, my cousin Sarah. We hadn't spoken much in years, but she was still active in the family group chat. She was also known for posting everything she did on Instagram. That was when I knew, without me lifting a finger, word was going to travel. Photos of the red carpet, the celebrity guests, the coverage on TV, it would all funnel back to the people who'd chosen brunch over my wedding. I didn't need to send them an invitation. I didn't need to send them anything at all. The moment was already set in motion. All I had to do was step onto that stage when the time came and let the rest take care of itself. The night of the gala arrived like the opening scene of a movie. The kind where the camera pans across a glittering city skyline before swooping down to a red carpet lined with photographers. Emily and I stepped out of the town car to a flurry of camera flashes, her gown catching the light in a way that made her look like she'd stepped right off the cover of a magazine. I was in a tailored black tux, shaking hands with the event coordinator as a small crowd gathered at the entrance. Inside, the venue was everything we'd envisioned. Towering floral arrangements framed the room. Soft jazz played in the background, and servers in crisp uniforms floated between tables with trays of champagne. Guests mingled under the warm glow of chandeliers, the kind of atmosphere that made you feel like you were exactly where you were supposed to be. The media team approached almost immediately. "Nolan, could we get a few shots of you and Emily on the step and repeat?" They meant the branded photo wall that would be all over social media and the next day's newspapers. We smiled for the cameras, answered a few interview questions about the charity, and posed with the mayor's representatives. Every flash of the camera felt like a silent rebuttal to the years my family had dismissed me. And then, like clockwork, I saw Sarah. She was standing near the bar, eyes wide as she took in the scene, phone already in hand. I watched her snap photos of the red carpet, the celebrity chef preparing dinner, the skyline view from the terrace. I didn't have to say a word. I knew she'd be posting everything in real time. Sure enough, by the time we sat down for dinner, I caught glimpses of her Instagram story being played back by other guests. The speeches began midway through the evening, and I was called to the stage. I walked up under the lights, the room quieting as I took the microphone. "Tonight isn't about me," I began, keeping my voice steady. "It's about what can happen when people come together to make something bigger than themselves." I spoke about the charity's work, about building community, about the power of showing up for others. Each phrase carefully chosen. When I said the words, showing up, I let them hang in the air for just a second longer than necessary. It wasn't obvious to anyone but me, but it was deliberate, a nod to the empty seats at my wedding, a reminder that some people measure love in words, while others prove it in presence. The applause was warm, genuine. As I stepped off the stage, Emily squeezed my hand, pride in her eyes. And somewhere across town, I could only Imagine my parents and Claire watching the clips on social media, my name being spoken on the evening news, my face on the local lifestyle show, my life lit up in a way they'd never believe possible. They hadn't been invited, but they were witnessing every moment. And the best part? I hadn't had to chase them, beg for their attention, or explain a single thing. I'd let the world do the talking for me, and it was louder than anything I could have said. By the end of the night, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Not from them, but from acquaintances, old classmates, even a couple of distant relatives, all sending messages like, "Just saw you on TV," and "That event looked incredible." I ignored most of them, slipping my phone back into my pocket because the real payoff wasn't in the applause, the coverage, or the praise. It was in knowing that the people who had written me off were now seeing me exactly as I was, without me ever having to let them back into my life. The first sign that the ripple effect had reached them came 2 days after the gala. I woke up to 3 missed calls from my mom and 1 from my dad, all within the same hour. No voicemails, just the silent urgency of repeated attempts. I let them go unanswered. By noon, there was a text from Claire, "Saw some posts. Was that your event? Looks like a big deal." No congratulations. No acknowledgement of what they'd missed. Just curiosity, as if she was trying to measure how much attention it had really gotten. That evening, Sarah posted one last batch of photos from the gala, including a shot of Emily and me on stage with the charity's director and the mayor's representatives. It was professional, polished, the kind of image that makes it into a magazine spread. I knew for certain my parents had seen it when my dad sent me a message at 9:13 p.m. "We didn't realize how important this was to you. Maybe we should get together and talk." I stared at that sentence for a long time. "We didn't realize," sticking out like a bitter joke. They'd realized enough to call my wedding boring and skip it for mimosas. They'd realized enough to post about their spa weekend while I was saying my vows. What they hadn't realized was that the gap they created that day couldn't be bridged with a single awkward dinner. The next morning, I got an even longer message from my mom. "I think we've all made mistakes. We'd like to make it up to you. Maybe we can plan something as a family soon." There was no apology, no ownership, just the same passive phrasing they'd always used, as if the hurt had been mutual instead of one-sided. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because I finally understood that closure wasn't something they could give me. I'd already found it the moment I stepped onto that gala stage, when I looked out at a room full of people who had shown up for me without hesitation. Over the next week, mutual relatives began sending messages, too. Some congratulating me, others saying things like, "Your parents seemed uncomfortable when your name came up." A few hinted that Claire had been unusually quiet in the group chat. Apparently, she'd made the mistake of bragging about knowing me to a colleague, only for them to gush about how amazing the gala had been and how I was making such a difference in the city. I could imagine her smile tightening as she nodded along, realizing the spotlight she'd tried to keep for herself had shifted permanently. The group chat that had once been flooded with Claire's photos suddenly went silent for days at a time. When it did light up again, it was over trivial things. No more bragging posts, no more subtle digs at me. They'd learned in the most public way possible that their version of who I was didn't match reality anymore. Weeks later, Emily and I hosted another event. Smaller, but still high profile. Invitations went out through our network, and as expected, none of my family received one. But I knew they'd see the photos again, and I knew the sting of not being included would linger. The difference this time was that it no longer mattered to me. Their approval wasn't a currency I needed to trade in anymore. I had built a life that didn't just survive their absence. It thrived because of it. And as I stood on the terrace of our home that night, looking out over the city lights with Emily by my side, I realized something simple and unshakable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living a life so far beyond their reach, they can't even pretend to keep up. What would you have done if your family had treated you this way? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you finally broke free from a toxic dynamic? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.